What is my great concern? My great concern is we have seen articles like this. We've heard it. Experts blame right-wing theorists for Boston Marathon. Have you noticed that every time something bad happens, you see the entire media start building up the groundswell for something like that, almost like it's a policy to do that. But it's a policy to generate narratives in the absence of facts. And what they're doing is, it seems to me, they're just playing a random game that once every so often one will pop up their way, and then they can run with the ball. But what it means is that they have put political considerations or ideological considerations ahead of briefing the fact of the matter. And this is getting to be really, I think, a problem. We've seen investigators favor domestic theory. We even have Salon hoping that the person who did this act was a white guy. Well, you know what? If it was a white guy that did that, I would hope that they would find him. And I would hope they'd run him down like they ran these people down. But I hope they do it no matter who it is. And one of the best ways to keep this from happening and to catch these guys is to chase them based on who they are, when there's a reasonably good understanding that we can understand who they are. So, terror experts, the Boston attack more like Columbine and 9/11. These are murderers, not terrorists. Really? So, and finally, brainwashing. I would like to point something out to you. When you listen to official reports on terrorism, or something having to do with terrorism, or media reports about terrorism, I want you to understand them. First, when you hear people say that people are crazy or they're unbalanced, you know what that means? It means they've given themselves permission to think about this as some kind of idiosyncratic act that requires no deep dive. And they give themselves permission to not do anything, except say, well, that guy's crazy. Well, what's the point of finding why he acted? You know? How many people have to die for the same reason? But we understand that that doesn't cut it. And we don't spend tens of billions of dollars in law enforcement and intelligence to have someone tell us, hey, the guy's crazy, what's the point? Because I could do that. I mean, anybody could do that. We're going to see how the Caliphate talks about this concept of jihad, the forms of jihad, and the very first one they talk about is individual jihad. The jihad may be of three forms. The first is individual jihad, and it consists of the individual personal deed, and it may be by the use of cutting, killing instruments like the jihad of, and it goes off and explains it. The killing of one of the officials arriving from Mecca by Abu Basir in the age of the Prophet is an example given. So first, the Caliphate is saying that this concept of individual jihad can be traced back to the time of the Prophet. It then gives an example where the Prophet Muhammad himself ordered such an event. This is extremely important because that makes this a formal part of jihad. When the Prophet commanded Abdullah, the son of Adak, that he and his 4 companions should go and kill Abi Rafi, the chief of the Jews of Khaybar, well known for his enmity toward Islam. And then finally, to put this in context, World War II, and kill one of those who belong to the Triple Entente of the infidels who are known for their hostility to Islam. So now we have a form of individual jihad. Now I'd like to think Major Hassan, the man who threw the grenade into the tent of the army, Malvo, the DC sniper. Actually, I think we could come up with a list of 10 people since 9/11 that we could say fits that category, but I've just given you a couple. And guess what? I think we could put the Boston Marathon in that category, or the next form of jihad we're going to get to, which is very close and similar to it. Is it a lone jihad? No. That's a jihadi, and it's individual jihad. Is there a conspiracy? Well, you know what? It may well be that that guy got a friend and then went to a very radical mosque to get some help to do something, but I want you to understand, that's not required. What's required is that he heard the requirement to fight jihad that he interpreted to be an individual act, and he was required to act. So the other form of jihad we're going to look at here is jihad by bands. It may be described as jihad by bands known in our time as brigands. Well, remember, when Muhammad first started fighting jihads, they would sit outside the city and raid the caravans. It was economic warfare. so that because it was jihad in the cause of Allah, it was jihad. But if somebody was to do that same thing, and it wasn't jihad in the cause of Allah, it would be highway robbery. So here we have this concept of jihad that includes this idea of individual jihad or small group activities. So let's kick forward to June 2010. Al-Qaeda comes out with their first magazine. And you know what? Al-Qaeda's magazine wasn't written in Arabic. It wasn't written in Farsi. It wasn't written in Pashtun. It was written in English. Inspire magazine. And here you have it. And what did they do? What did they do? They basically announced that their magazine, written in English, the Islamic magazine is geared toward the making of a Muslim mujahid. That's the actual term for jihadi, a person who fights jihad, in Allah's path. Our intent is to give the most accurate presentation of Islam as followed by the Salaf al-Salih. Our concern for the Ummah is worldwide. So here you see that there's a change in scope. There's actually going to be here a change of mission, because their goal is the entire Islamic, the Salafi movement. And then they came to their third option, individual jihad and small cell terrorism. Now here is the spring 2013 edition of Inspire. Of course, this is a special edition, so this is on the inside leaf because it's a special edition. Here's that edition. It's called the Lone Mujahid Pocketbook. Well, as I said earlier, the real word for jihadi is actually mujahid. And they're playing on the fact that we use lone wolf, so they said lone mujahid instead of individual jihad. And if you got to page 40, what you found is how to make a pressure cooker bomb. We have Islamic doctrine. There is such a thing as jihad that means warfare, and individual jihad is a part of that that goes back to the very beginning and is recognized as such. And now we have Al-Qaeda saying that's where they're going. So every one of those people writing those articles saying, here, it looks like it might be homegrown terrorism, or our national security, law enforcement, or intelligence people saying the same thing, I would like to point out that you have been on formal notice by Al-Qaeda in English that this is a change in strategy and this is how they're coming at you, and I would like to suggest that's exactly what they did in Boston. It's exactly what Major Hassan did. It's exactly what the DC sniper did. And like I said, I think we could easily get a list of 10 others inside the United States since 9/11. Now finally, the most important quote, understanding the role of the Muslim Brotherhood in North America, the first line is very important. It says, the process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. When you're reading Muslim Brotherhood material or things that emanate around it, when you hear by itself that they're here to settle, their goal is settlement, you need to know that they mean jihad. How do you know? Because I'm telling you, they just defined it right here. The process of settlement is the civilization jihadist process with all that it means. And they go on and give us a taste of it. The Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. So, how do they plan to win the civilization jihad? Well, among other things, they plan to win it by getting us to defeat ourselves. Maybe by having our elite media and our elite law enforcement and elite strategic thinkers orient all their thinking on abstractions or ideological preferences in light of the fact of a published game plan which we just saw executed. Maybe that's civilization jihad. And also going after people who would point out that what we just saw was right out of somebody's game plan. The reason we're going into this explanatory memorandum is not just to point out the role of the Muslim Brotherhood, according to their own strategic document, but that they have a paragraph 17 that talks about the role of their centers. mosques under the control of the Muslim Brotherhood, which they do not call mosques. They do, but they don't. They call either Islamic centers or Islamic societies of. So what does paragraph 17 say? Understanding the role and the nature of the work of the Islamic center in every city with what achieves the goal of the process of settlement. So what did they just say here? An Islamic center in every city is there to achieve the goal of the process of settlement, which means that every Muslim Brotherhood-controlled mosque is here to engage in civilization jihad. It goes on. This is the order for the Islamic center to turn in action, not in words, into a seed for a small Islamic society. Going back to that paragraph 17, we actually point out that the process of settlement is civilization jihad, but we also want to point out that it tells you the center we seek is the one which constitutes the axis of our movement, the perimeter, the circle of our work, the balance center, the base for our rise in our Dar al-Arqam, to educate us, prepare and supply our battalions. The word in Arabic was phalange. The meaning of the center's role should be the same as the mosque's role during the time of God's prophet, God's prayer and peace be on him, when he marched to settle the dawah in the first generation of Medina from the mosque. This is very important. A Muslim Brotherhood mosque, an Islamic center or an Islamic society of, it is a mosque that is the type of mosque that Muhammad used when he was settling, waging jihad in furtherance of the dawah mission in Medina. So they're flat out saying that. You have to make a decision to analyze what they mean by what's intended to be meant when you use their narrative. We want to draw this hard line between Muslim Brotherhood and the front groups in this country and Al-Qaeda. Yet clearly, we have been disappointed by maintaining that hard line. And why are we putting a hard line where clearly that line is blurred? In fact, clearly, it just goes from shades of darker gray to lighter gray. We're not even going to black and white. So the FBI, we're in a situation right now where the FBI's requirements are that they can clear somebody from any interview because they're not allowed to use the language that would identify them as the terrorist that already killed people in Boston, that already killed people at Fort Hood, okay, that got people killed with Malveaux, although I'm not going to hang that too hard on people. So what am I trying to say here? Because I'm working around trying to make a point. The point is that even if those FBI agents did know the question to ask, they know that the Muslim Brotherhood demanded our White House punish people for asking the question. That's where we are right now. And what I can't understand is why a chairman of an oversight committee in the other party gave the FBI a free ride here. Because if this standard stays, we already know that Al-Qaeda wants individual jihad. And there's every reason to believe that they've been working on it for 3 years to build up that capacity. It's coming. So I think that if this is the standard we're going to use with the FBI and DHS to identify domestic terrorists who are jihadis, you better start getting prepared. We need to get prepared for the fact that they will systematically clear people who otherwise would be known to be clearly dangerous ahead of the game. How do we know that? Even the Russians told us these guys were bad, and we are looking at what information was there, and they clearly were, and they weren't allowed to make an assessment based on it. They weren't even allowed to ask the question. So, at what point does the need to fulfill an ideological desire to have every act of mass murder be a right-wing extremist become something that's killing people? Okay? Am I saying we shouldn't target Ku Klux Klan or some extreme Nazi party thing? Absolutely. But only insofar as they actually constitute a threat. Here we have a clear and present danger. And here we have DHS setting up guidelines that keep us from even being able to go after them when foreign powers give us the lowdown. Thank you for your time.